about a year ago, August of last year to be technical, I saw a movie called VHS, a horror movie called VHS. This movie was a movie that premiered at Sundance early last year, and it was getting really well received, and critics were praising it up and down, up and down. I kept hearing about it to the point that I was kind of hyped for it when it came out on video on demand in August last year, and the trailers looked really good, and it was being promised that it was an anthology horror film, which I really love. Anthology horror films, for anybody who don't know what they are basically like Tales from the Crypt and Creepshow, where there are multiple stories in one movie, um, and sometimes they're interconnected and everything like that. And but this movie was being promised to be different in the fact that it was every story was basically a short found footage movie, and found footage at this point is getting is getting tiresome to say the least. But I was curious to see how this was gonna end up being. The first one was gonna end up being, and was actually surprised how well received it was getting, especially since it was a found footage movie, because most critics hate found footage movies. And I, if for people that are watching this right now on YouTube, I did a review for VHS, and obviously I did that before I went on YouTube, and so I'll give you my opinion. My opinion of the first movie was that I didn't find it. I found it. I found it to be a pretty good creepy movie, especially to watch like during at midnight in the dark. It's a good movie to watch during that time of night. Um, but I found the movie to be just okay, honestly, just as a whole. I thought the first story was good, really good. I thought the girl with the big eyes was really creepy and creeped me out for that. She was the most memorable thing of that whole movie. Uh, and the last story was really good. A really good haunted house, mixture of haunted house and found footage. And it was really memorable. And it was from a band, from an unknown band called Radio Silence I'd never heard of, but they pulled off one of the most memorable movies, which is interesting. Uh, they were first time directors and everything. I thought that was interesting. But the stories in the middle, particularly the second and the fourth one, had the issue of that they had interesting stories, but then they threw out like these twists that came out of nowhere, and with like no explanation whatsoever, they just ended it after the twist happened, and you're just left going, "What the hell was that all about?" You're left confused. You didn't know what just happened. Particularly the one with the Skype, the girl and the guy on the Skype conversation, which also made no sense. Why would anybody put a Skype conversation on VHS? I've seen the directors try to explain that, but they have not. They can't explain that very well. It's You can't tell me one good reason why a Skype conversation's on a VHS tape. And plus, the wraparound story wasn't the greatest either, but it was good. It was okay. I mean, there was nothing bad about it, but overall, the movie was okay, pretty good, to the point that when I heard they were making a sequel, I was like, all right, I'll watch. It was the first one was good enough that I will watch it, and then like the first one, this movie, the second movie was getting very well received. That it premiered at Sundance. It was getting very well received. A lot of critics saying this proved a lot more on the second one. Proved a lot on the second one's or the first one's problems. I mean, and I was kind of excited to see this movie, even though was still hesitant that in thinking that, well, the first movie got really well received when it first premiered at Sundance, and then I just was kind of underwhelmed by it, the first movie. So I don't know. I was kind of hesitant. The trailers looked great. The trailer looked great for that movie, especially the Red Band trailer. And I was even the Red Band trailer made me really pumped to watch this movie. Um, but I like I said, I was still keeping out hope, and I as soon as I got off work this morning, it just came on video on demand this today, and as soon as I got off work this morning, I went on Amazon.com and ordered it. I was really excited to watch it, and I finished watching this movie, and I can honestly say that this movie is a hell lot better than the first movie. 10 times better than the first movie. Um, the stories are all the stories are consistently good. They're they're very memorable. One in particular, which I will get into, are very memorable. All the stories are very memorable. They're a lot of fun. They they're not all the exact same thing, and they even do a lot of unique things, which I'll talk about too. They do some stuff I've never seen done before in horror movie, a found footage movie, which is saying something. Um, and plus, this movie is an hour and a half instead of 2 hours like the first movie. That was one of the problems, was that the stories would drag on because they were given 2 hours instead of an hour and a half. And this movie, the stories don't drag on, and the ones that need to be short are short, and the ones that need to be long are long. And because of that, it feels perfect. The time I felt it was perfect running time for this movie, an hour and a half, not 2 hours like the first movie. That would have been ridiculous for this movie, honestly, to drag it on for 2 hours. This movie this time is the story this time is that a private investigator and his assistant, who's also his girlfriend, I guess, are being or being paid by this woman to help find her son, who hasn't gone to class and has not returned any of her phone calls as of late. So she wants them to go check up on him, to go to his house and check up on him. And when they go to the house, instead of like the first movie where they found like a creepy old dead guy in the house, they find nobody there, and all they find all they find is VHS tapes. They're on static, or VHS, or I mean televisions. They're all on static, and VHS tapes all around like they did in the first one. And also, the kid had a laptop set up where he was recording his reactions to the VHS tapes and talking about the VHS tapes on his webcam. And so, while they're trying to figure out what's going on with this kid, it's really unclear. They decide to start watching the VHS tapes, and that's where the stories start coming in. The first story was called Clinical Trials Phase 1. This was an interesting idea. It basically is about this guy who gets in a car accident and he gets an eye injury, serious eye injury. So the doctors decide to implant a robotic eye that they have like a recording chip. They install a recording chip in so they can see his progress with this new eye. And so basically, you're seeing from the point of view of his, you see him blinking and everything else and stuff like that. And I thought that was pretty creative and everything else. So basically, he goes and goes home with this new eye implant, and once he gets home, he starts seeing these creepy images, like just a dead guy and a dead girl just taunting him constantly, just messing with him, and it's very creepy. I kind of cracked up because I was watching this story, and I've seen every horror movie out there, and I've seen every horror movie cliche, like, oh, like he thinks they're in the bed, and he looks and there's nothing there, and then he turns around, and there's somebody there, like that maybe, and I've seen that a million times in movies. But I still freaking jumped at that. I was like, really, Bill? I was like, you jumped at that? But this movie was kind of creepy. The story was kind of creepy, and it was kind of effective. And I was interested, in what was happening. And it's kind of not explained why this little girl and this guy are haunting him. But I kind of got the gist that maybe if they got in a car crash, when they got in a car crash, it killed them. But it's never really explained. But basically, that's the story that he keeps getting haunted. I'm not going to reveal anything else about it. It also involves a girl that he meets at the doctor's office, coming over and explaining to him what's going on with these ghosts. But that's all I'm going to say about it. The only problem I had with the story was the ending. Was that it got way too found footagey, if that makes sense. I know that's not a word. And too shaky cam, to the point that some points towards the end, I could not tell what the hell was going on. I had to kind of look at the Wikipedia to kind of see what the hell, if I was correct in thinking what just happened. But I thought it was a pretty solid story, pretty good story. It was creepy. I thought it was effective enough. I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was a pretty good way to start it off. And then we get to the second story called Ride in the Park. This one, I was worried from the get-go, because when you first meet this character, it's basically this guy. He has he's a bike. He's riding his bike through a park. A ride in the park, and he has a helmet on, and he puts a camera on the helmet, and he puts a camera on his bike also. So the movie, the footage is being chronicled from his helmet mostly, and also his bike at sometimes, but mostly his helmet is the point of view you're seeing. It starts out really worrisome. I was really worried because his character, like the first lines of dialogue in the story that he has with his girlfriend, when he calls his girlfriend, is really annoying and really stupid. And I was like, oh god, I'm in for trouble, ain't I? But then it got better, because it gets right into the action pretty much. Because as he's riding his bike along in this park, he comes across a zombie apocalypse, because that happens every day, I guess. And shit happens, I guess. Yeah, he comes across a zombie apocalypse. And where the story becomes really interesting is that where the story becomes really interesting, and a lot of people are giving this story a lot of praise, is that he ends up becoming infected halfway through the story, and becomes a zombie. So the rest of the story ends up becoming the point of view from a zombie. That's pretty creative. I gotta give points to that. That is something I have not seen done before. Props to that. And it causes some really funny moments. I said, I hope they were meaning for this to be funny, because this was hysterical. There were some parts, like the zombie interactions of, he has interactions with other zombies, and it's pretty freaking hysterical. And there's no way that was not done intentionally funny, because if it wasn't, yeah, it failed. Also, it's from the guy who made the Blair Witch Project, one of the directors from the Blair Witch Project. Surprise, surprise! It's a story in the woods. I guess this guy really likes the woods for some reason, but I'm not a huge. By the way, I'm not. I hate the Blair Witch Project, but I really like this story. It was entertaining. It was memorable. It was short. It was about 15 minutes, less than 15 minutes long. The first story was pretty long, but not. I think maybe about 20 minutes. The first story was 20 minutes. This one's about 15, maybe even shorter. And this, it was short and it was fun. It was pretty memorable, and I got a kick out of it. Then as you know, as those two were really good, and the first two were really good, I was really looking forward to the last two though, because of two different reasons. Which then we get into next week, because they were both ones that looked pretty interesting. The last two stories I've heard about, and the last two looked really interesting. The next story I got was Safe Haven. Jesus Christ, was this one of the most craziest things of this book. This was the best story, hands freaking down. I've seen a lot of crazy things in my years of watching horror films. I've seen a lot of insane things in horror films. I didn't think I had seen. I thought I saw it all until I saw this. Holy crap! This story is about this documentary film crew decides to chronicle a compound run by this leader, or like this like cult leader, who has many women and children following him, and also men following him, and he's promising them to deliver them to the promised land and everything else, and go to the gates of heaven or something like that, promising to take him to the gates of heaven and everything else. And this guy, the story is very good from the beginning, because it's like this guy's very creepy. The guy that got to play the cult leader is really creepy and creeped me out. And this is from the director of The Raid Redemption, and I want to see more of this guy's movies. This movie is from Indonesia, or this story is from Indonesia, and because of that, this movie's also in subtitles. The story's in subtitles, only one in subtitles. But Jesus Christ, is this the most memorable one? Yeah, from the beginning you could tell this cult leader is just really creepy and just unnerving, very unnerving. And hold on a second. So eventually, towards the beginning of the story, the documentary crew, the cult leader lets the documentary crew come to the compound, and they unluckily come when the cult leader is promising all his followers that he will take them to the promised land, and things start slowly but surely getting really crazy. But towards the end, Jesus Christ, does this get insane. I can't explain what happens. There's no justice. You have to see this. When shit gets crazy, shit gets crazy. It is one of the goriest freaking things I've ever seen. I can't express what happens. Just know that it gets really batshit insane. There's some things in this story I have never seen done before. I can't explain it. I don't even want to ruin some of the stuff that happens in this story. It is so, oh good God, I felt like I needed to I had to stop the movie for a little bit. I was like, what the hell did I just watch? It is, it's it's one of the best things I've seen put on horror film in a long time. This story's given a long time, the longest story of the whole series, of the whole movie. Thank God they gave this one a lot of time, because this is the most memorable one. This is the one everybody's going to remember walking away from this movie. Uh, it was, just to give you a hint what this story was. This is that story. If you've seen the trailer, this is that one where you saw a lot of crazy shit going on in that trailer, and you're like, what is going on in that trailer? In that scene, a lot of those sequences that you saw in the trailer, you're like, what the hell's going on here? It's from this story. And trust me, the trailer does not give away all the good stuff. Trust me. It doesn't give away half the good stuff in this story. It is bloody, it is gory, it is memorable. I can't express that enough. Watch this story, especially if you really want to see VHS 2, just watch it. Just watch it for this. Trust me. You will be blown away. You will just be on, what the hell did I just watch? I can't praise it enough. And after that, I was like, oh boy. Yeah, I think this movie might have shot itself in the foot. Because there's no way you could top that. No way you could top that. You were just like, how could you top that? So I decided to throw the last story at us, which is called, this was one that I was looking forward to a lot, because out of all the stories, this was the one I was hearing a lot about from the critics. And this one's called Alien Abduction Slumber Party. Is it Slumber Party? Alien Abduction? I can't. Let me look this up. I'm looking at a thing that's saying something different. Slumber Party. Okay, Slumber Party Alien Abduction. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's a slumber party with kids that kids are having during the night, and aliens start invading and start abducting them one by one, basically. And a lot of the footage, the cameras put on their dog, basically, and the point of view is from the dog, basically, the whole movie, the whole story almost. Basically, it is kind of funny. I thought the kids were pretty memorable. They basically these little kids are going out of their way to trying to find ways to harass their sister. One kid's trying to find ways to harass his older sister, who's has her boyfriend over and doesn't want to be bothered, but these kids just keep bugging the crap out of her, and they keep, these kids are pretty funny. It got to the point though, like towards when the aliens came, I wanted them all to die. The only character I really I was worried about the whole movie was the dog. I felt bad for that dog. Good God, did I feel bad for it? And then poor dog, I was like, please let the dog survive. And the dog doesn't. What happens to the dog? And the dog. I felt bad for what happened to the dog at the end of the story, man. I really did. I thought the story was pretty fun. It had the same problem as the first one in that it went way too shaky cam to the point I could not tell what the hell was going on, especially when like the aliens first come and start abducting them. Somehow they get from, somebody please explain to me if they see the movie, what happens between when they first start getting abducted in the house, and how, like, because it gets all shaky cam to the point, like, they go from the house somehow to the lake. I don't know how that happened. I still can't figure out how that happened. I think it just kind of jump cut to it, but I still don't understand how they got to the lake. In the lake. The lake, they live by a lake. I know they live by a lake, but how did they get there? They went from inside the house to in a lake. I don't know how they did that. I still don't know. But yeah, the problem is it goes way too shaky cam. It is pretty creepy. There's some pretty creepy elements in it when the alien abductions. And I thought it was pretty fun. It was. I think I think they should have switched the safe haven and the alien abduction. I thought this should be third, and safe haven should have been last because there was no way you were going to top safe haven. No freaking way. I think they kind of shot themselves in the foot with that. I think they should have stuck safe haven last because that was the one that everybody's going to remember. Um, but I did like I thought the alien abduction or slumber party alien abduction was pretty fun. Um, I thought the kids were kind of funny, and like I said, I kind of felt bad for the dog. I was like, I wanted that dog to survive really badly. I'll just give you a hint: the dog kind of dies a violent death. Poor dog. I felt bad. Uh, and then, of course, the story ends up wrapping up, and the main story wraps up after this movie. And when it does, it doesn't, like the first one. It doesn't really explain what the hell just is going on, but it is a little bit better than the first story. I'll give it that. Um, it has some really one of the things it has some really good practical effects, gory effects. That's one thing I love about this movie was that a lot of this was practical gory effects, especially in Safe Haven, and it looked really impressive. Like Evil Dead, like how I gave a lot of praise to Evil Dead, and it's practical effects. The practical effect, gory effects in this movie were really good too. I really enjoyed the effects in these movies. And then the wraparound story that ends at uh, that takes up the last 8 minutes of the movie. Um, there's some really good gory effects in it. And I like that. Um, so yeah, I recommend this movie. Um, good Jesus, God, was this interesting. Um, watch Safe Haven. I, I don't want to just say like Safe Haven was the only redeeming thing because all the stories were good. They're all memorable. Yeah, the problems with the shaky cam was uh, only I would say is the only flaw of this movie. I would say the stories with the shaky cam were the only flaws, but still, seriously, watch Safe Haven. That was one of the most memorable things I've ever watched. One of the most insane things I've ever watched, and I'm gonna remember that for a while. Uh, some of that imagery and that freaking story I will never get out of my head. Um, but yeah, go see that or go watch. You can watch it on video on demand on Time Warner, Amazon, iTunes, whatever. Get it. It's like $10, and it's memorable. It's worth the $10. Trust me, I promise you, it's worth the $10. It's about this. That's about as much as you pay for a ticket price at the movie theater. So, yeah. Um, I'll be back tomorrow with The Purge, which I don't think will be as memorable as uh, VHS 2, but we'll see. Um, this VHS 2 is one of the best horror movies, the best horror movie I've seen all year, hands down. Alright, get off here. Man, I'm on 29 minutes. This is the longest video I've done. Get off here. See you guys tomorrow with The Purge, and I'll talk to you guys later.